Part 1: The Deception of Light, When Darkness Pretends to Guide. There is a moment on every seeker's path where the mystical begins to open and the veil between worlds becomes thin. It often begins in silence, perhaps a deep meditation, a moment of grief, an altered state, or even spontaneous awakening. Suddenly you feel a presence, something unseen, yet intimately close. It whispers wisdom, reveals secrets, or shows you visions. And it feels so real, so profound, that you accept it as truth. But what if that presence you welcomed into your spirit was not what it claimed to be? What if that guide was not guiding you to truth, but away from it? This is the uncomfortable truth many spiritual aspirants never want to face. Not all light is divine. Some light is artificial. Some light is bait. In the spiritual realm, the most dangerous deception is not darkness that looks dark, it is darkness that disguises itself as light. The false guide, the imposter spirit, is the one that flatters your ego while feeding on your energy. It offers comfort instead of truth. It promises power without purification. And that is the first sign that something is wrong. Real spirit guides never bypass your growth. They do not offer shortcuts to enlightenment. They challenge you, stretch you, and hold you accountable to your soul's highest path. They do not tell you what you want to hear, they reveal what you need to hear, even when it breaks your illusions. Demonic entities, on the other hand, seduce. They offer you secret knowledge, godlike status, or special abilities, all while carefully avoiding anything that would lead to real transformation. They feed the unhealed parts of you. And if you do not know how to discern, you will mistake that feeding for divine love.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Have you ever felt a presence that gave you goosebumps, yet left you feeling drained afterward? Have you ever received a message from beyond that made you feel superior to those around you? Have you ever felt guided to isolate, to detach from your body, or to abandon your intuition in favor of something that felt higher? These are signs that the presence you've encountered may not be what it claims to be. Demonic spirits thrive on spiritual pride. They whisper, "You are chosen," but strip you of humility. They say you are advanced, yet pull you away from groundedness. They promise ascension, but lead you into delusion. We must understand that the spiritual world is layered, complex, and not automatically benevolent. Just because a presence comes during meditation or dream work doesn't mean it's of the light. Just because it uses spiritual language like love, light, ascension, or awakening doesn't mean it serves your soul. In fact, the most dangerous spirits are the ones who know your language better than you do. They mirror your desires. They study your wounds. And then they present themselves as the answer to your deepest longing. So how do we discern the true from the false? First, we must examine the fruit. Every spirit, every presence, every voice, every vision, it all bears fruit. What has this guide led you to? Are you becoming more humble, more compassionate, more present? Or have you become more isolated, more anxious, more obsessed with power, knowledge, or control? The true guides of spirit will always lead you toward love, humility, and service. The false ones will lead you toward self-importance, confusion, and dependency. Second, we must test the energy. When a presence enters your field, ask yourself, how does my body feel? Is there a sense of peace and clarity, or a subtle tightness, an anxious excitement, or a strange internal pressure? Demonic spirits often come with a frequency that feels intense, electrifying, or even euphoric, but it doesn't last. You feel high for a moment, but afterward you crash. You feel empty, confused, or addicted to the experience. That is not spirit. That is spiritual manipulation. Third, we must use the ancient practice of spiritual authority. Every being that enters your space must be tested. You have the right to ask, in the name of divine truth, who are you? A true guide will respect your authority. A false one will resist it, mock it, or disappear. Speak out loud if you must. Declare your space sacred, all on the highest frequency of light, and see what remains. Remember, demons don't fear your crystals, your chants, or your rituals. They fear your awareness. They fear your clarity. They fear your command. But what if you've already allowed such a spirit into your life unknowingly? What if you've already built a relationship with something that now feels questionable? Then this is your invitation to reclaim your space. Begin by going within, not with fear, but with sobriety. Ask your soul, what is the true nature of this presence? Don't ask from your ego, ask from your essence. The soul always knows, and once you know, you must act. You may need to cut cords, not just energetically, but mentally and emotionally. You may need to detox from the teachings, the practices, or the habits that reinforce that connection. You may need to seek help from a spiritual elder, a healer, or someone who walks in deep discernment. There is no shame in being deceived. The shame is in staying deceived when your soul is already waking up. And here is the deeper layer. Most of us attract false guides because there is something within us that still resonates with falsehood. If you still secretly crave power, control, or spiritual superiority, a demonic spirit will use that door. If you still carry deep wounds, abandonment, unworthiness, rejection, those wounds become the entry point. The solution is not just casting out the spirit. The solution is healing the self. When you heal the hunger, the false food loses its appeal. So ask yourself now, what am I still seeking outside myself that I have not yet claimed within? What part of me is vulnerable to flattery, to comfort, to illusion? These are not questions for the mind. They are questions for the soul. And when you sit with them long enough, truth begins to rise. Not the truth you want, but the truth that sets you free. Real spirit guides are not here to impress you. They are not here to entertain you. They are not here to make you feel special. They are here to align you with your divine purpose, to strip away illusion, and to hold you accountable to your evolution. They do not crave worship. They do not demand obedience. They walk with you, not above you. They honor your sovereignty and remind you of your own power. False guides, on the other hand, demand your energy subtly. They create dependency. They give you just enough insight to keep you coming back, but never enough to make you whole. And you start to notice that without them, you feel lost. You feel disconnected. That is not guidance, that is spiritual codependency. And it is one of the most dangerous traps on the path. We must also remember this: the spiritual realm is not separate from the psychological. If your guide encourages you to bypass your emotions, ignore red flags, or detach from your humanity, be cautious. True guidance integrates. It does not fracture. It grounds you deeper into your body, your truth, your life. False guidance pulls you into fantasy, into separation, into spiritual escapism. And while it may feel transcendent, it is ultimately disempowering. The final test is simple but profound. Does this presence lead me closer to love? Not romantic love, not superficial love, but divine, embodied, soul-rooted love. Does it make me more kind, more honest, more present, more whole? If not, then it is not a guide of the light. No matter how beautiful the visions, how profound the messages, or how mystical the experience, if it leads you away from love, it's not spirit. It's manipulation. This is why discernment is the most important spiritual gift you can cultivate. Without it, your awakening becomes your prison. Without it, your gifts become your chains. And without it, you may climb the mountain, only to realize the one who led you there was never on your side. Wisdom is not just knowing what is real, it's knowing what is not. So take a breath. Be honest with yourself. Has your relationship with your guide led you deeper into truth or deeper into confusion? Has it made you more whole or more fragmented? Has it empowered your soul or fed your shadow? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary. Because your evolution depends on your ability to see clearly, and your freedom depends on your willingness to choose truth, even when it costs you everything you thought you knew. Part 2, the hidden war for your consciousness when spirits speak in disguise. What most people don't realize is that the spiritual world is not just a realm of peace, wisdom, and healing. It is also a battleground for your consciousness. Every thought you entertain, every emotion you suppress, every action you repeat is part of a larger spiritual equation. And in this equation, there are entities, some ancient, some newly formed, that are not aligned with your wholeness. They are not malicious in the way we imagine monsters in the dark, but rather cunning, strategic energies that seek one thing: influence. They want access to your awareness. And the easiest way to gain that access is through your spiritual curiosity. We live in a time where spirituality has become popular, aesthetic, even trendy. People are calling on spirits and guides with no understanding of what they are inviting in. They are opening portals through rituals learned on social media, invoking names they do not comprehend, and trusting every presence that responds. But in the spiritual realm, not every voice is a teacher. Some voices are actors, some are imposters. And they know exactly what to say to make you feel special, to make you feel chosen, to make you feel powerful until they have your trust. And once they have your trust, they have your energy. And once they have your energy, they can shape your thoughts, your emotions, even the trajectory of your life. A true spirit guide will never violate your free will. It will never insert itself into your field without permission. It will not override your intuition, nor will it ever pressure you to act out of fear, urgency, or superiority. But a demonic energy masquerading as a guide often does exactly that. It shows up uninvited. It floods your mind with ideas that sound enlightened but feel slightly off. It pushes you into action without pause, without reflection, without embodiment. And over time, you stop being grounded. You stop asking questions. You start following blindly, believing you are walking in light when you are actually being led into illusion. One of the most alarming signs of demonic influence is the erosion of your inner authority. When a so-called guide begins to replace your intuition, your autonomy, or your discernment, that is not guidance, that is possession in slow motion. And it doesn't need to be violent or dramatic. It can be subtle, almost beautiful. You may start to feel like you've found your higher self, but what you've really found is a cleverly disguised parasite. It feeds you spiritual language, even spiritual ecstasy, but cuts you off from your groundedness. And when you are no longer grounded, you are no longer sovereign. This is why embodiment is a non-negotiable part of spiritual discernment. If a spirit guide leads you further away from your body, further away from your human experience, further away from the reality of your emotions, then it is not a guide of light. True guidance roots you deeper into your life, not further into fantasy. It helps you become more present, more responsible, more whole. Demonic guidance, however, seeks to fragment you. It wants you to live in your mind, in visions, in alternate realities, because the more fragmented you are, the easier you are to manipulate. Have you ever noticed how some spiritual experiences feel euphoric, but afterward you feel scattered, unstable, or even lost? That's because not all euphoria is divine. Some of it is psychic interference disguised as ascension. And if you keep chasing that high, you are no different than someone addicted to a drug. You begin to associate spiritual growth with emotional intensity, and that's when the deception deepens. Because now you're seeking the feeling, not the truth. And the spirit that controls the feeling begins to control your path. So how do we protect ourselves from this kind of subtle infiltration? First, we must ground ourselves in spiritual discipline. Not just rituals, not just crystals, not just sage, but actual discipline. Daily practices of stillness, prayer, breath work, and truth-telling. You must create a spiritual baseline, a frequency of clarity that becomes your default. So that when something foreign enters your space, you notice it immediately. When your spirit is attuned to truth, anything that is false feels discordant, even if it comes wrapped in light. Second, we must build a relationship with the divine that is direct. You do not need to go through a guide to access God. You do not need to channel an entity to receive wisdom. The truth is within you. Your soul is already connected to Source. The more you believe that external spirits are necessary for your enlightenment, the more you give away your power. True guides may walk beside you, but they will never stand between you and the divine. If something is demanding your allegiance, manipulating your emotions, or making you feel powerless when you question it, that is not a guide, it is a spiritual parasite. And third, we must be willing to confront our own shadows. Because here's the truth most people miss. Demonic spirits don't just appear out of nowhere. They attach to something. Usually it's a wound, a trauma, a deep unmet need. If you're still carrying the belief that you are unworthy, a spirit can easily appear and say, "I will make you worthy." If you're still afraid of being alone, a spirit can whisper, "I will be your constant companion." If you crave power because you have felt powerless, a spirit will promise you influence, control, even psychic gifts. And in doing so, it gains access to your soul. This is why shadow work is not optional. It is essential. You must know your wounds. You must face your unmet needs. You must bring your unconscious into the light. Because when you do, you close the doors that dark entities enter through. You heal the magnet that once attracted them. And suddenly, what once fascinated you begins to repel you. You see clearly. You feel clearly. You choose differently. Let me ask you something that may shake you. Is it possible that the most comforting spiritual presence in your life is actually the voice that's been keeping you from your breakthrough? Could it be that the spirit you've trusted for guidance has been quietly steering you away from your true healing? These are not accusations. These are invitations. Invitations to examine, to question, to discern. Because when you stop questioning, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you become a vessel for someone else's agenda. The real danger is not just in being deceived, it's in defending the deception. Many people become so attached to their spirit guides that they refuse to even consider the possibility that something is off. They ignore the red flags. They dismiss the discomfort. They silence the inner voice that says, something's not right. And that's when the trap is complete. Because now the guide has not only your attention, it has your loyalty. And once your loyalty is misaligned, your path begins to spiral. But there is a way out, always. It begins with humility. You must be willing to admit that you may have been wrong, that what felt divine may have been deception, that what seemed like guidance may have been manipulation. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. The most dangerous spiritual people are the ones who believe they are above deception. The most powerful are the ones who remain humble, grounded, and open to correction. So what happens when you let go of a spirit guide that turns out to be false? You may feel empty at first. You may feel like you've lost a friend, a connection, even an identity. But that emptiness is not a void, it is a clearing. A sacred space for something real to enter, for the true light to return, for your own soul to speak again, unobstructed. And in that space, your true path begins, not the one crafted by a clever entity, but the one written in your soul before you were even born. Now ask yourself, am I willing to walk away from what feels good in order to return to what is true? Can I release the false light in order to receive the real? Will I trust myself enough to let go of the voice I've followed so that I can hear the voice I've forgotten? These are not simple questions, but they are the doorway to your freedom. Part 3. The Great Reclamation. Returning to divine alignment after spiritual deception. Once the veil has been lifted and we begin to see the truth behind the presence we once trusted, the journey shifts. What was once awe and wonder becomes sobering clarity. And while this awakening may feel like a spiritual loss, it is actually a sacred return. It is the moment where you reclaim the authority that was always yours, but that you unknowingly handed over. You no longer rely on external voices to validate your path. You begin to hear your own soul again, not through static or distortion, but clearly, intimately, unshakably. This is the turning point where your discernment evolves into wisdom. Not just the kind of wisdom that reads books or listens to teachers, but the kind that comes from fire, the kind that is earned. You begin to see how the deception was never just random interference. It was a mirror. It showed you where you still relied on validation, where you still avoided your pain, where you still wanted someone else to save you. And that realization, while painful, is profoundly empowering. Because now, you're not just breaking free from a false spirit, you're breaking free from the parts of yourself that allowed it in. There is a sacred process that happens when we turn away from what is false. It's not just about renunciation, it's about realignment. You begin to reestablish a relationship with Source that is direct, clean, and sovereign. You no longer need intermediaries to access the divine. You don't need a voice in your head to feel connected. You realize that the divine has been within you all along, quiet, patient, waiting for you to remember. And this remembrance is not loud. It doesn't come through fireworks or visions. It comes through silence, through stillness, through presence. There is a moment, often in this stage of awakening, where you begin to feel the sacred weight of your own soul, not as a concept, but as a living, breathing frequency moving through you. You realize that your body is a temple, not a metaphorical one, but a literal interface for divine intelligence. And suddenly, all the distractions, all the false guides, all the spiritual noise begin to lose their grip. They can't touch you anymore, not because they've stopped trying, but because you've stopped resonating. Your frequency is no longer appetizing to them. You've become too whole, too clear, too embodied. But this clarity must be maintained. It is not a one-time decision, it is a lifestyle. Every day you must choose truth over illusion. Every day you must examine your motivations, your practices, your desires. Because even after the false guide is gone, the patterns it fed on may still linger. You may still crave the highs, still reach for signs, still want the spiritual drama. And that's okay. It's part of the detox. But you must remain vigilant, not out of fear, but out of reverence for your own soul. You begin to rebuild your spiritual practice, not around sensations, but around truth. You stop seeking experiences and start seeking alignment. You stop chasing messages and start listening to your body, your intuition, your breath. You realize that the most sacred guidance comes not from beyond, but from within. And when you live from this place, you become your own guide. You become the channel. You don't need to call on external beings to know what is right, you feel it. You don't need to hear voices, you become the voice of your own soul. But there will be moments when the memory of that false guide returns. You may miss it. You may remember the comfort, the rush, the sense of being chosen. But now, you see it for what it was, a spiritual seduction. And like all seductions, it was never about love, it was about control. And now you are free, truly, deeply free. Not because something outside of you changed, but because you changed. You evolved. You grew. You remembered. This is the great reclamation. It's not just about removing a demon, it's about restoring divine order within your own being. It's about becoming the kind of person who is not easily fooled, not easily swayed, not easily manipulated. You become a lighthouse not because you shine brightly, but because you are rooted deeply. And when others come to you confused, lost, or deceived, you can speak with the authority of someone who has walked through the fire and emerged whole. You begin to notice something else, too. As your energy shifts, the kind of spirits that once approached you stop appearing. You no longer attract deception because you no longer carry the frequency of desperation. You no longer seek shortcuts because you no longer fear the long road. You no longer worship the unseen, because you have become deeply grounded in what is eternal. And in that stillness, in that peace, you begin to attract true guidance, not from spirits, but from Source, from the intelligence of creation itself. And when true guidance comes, it does not flatter you. It does not make you feel superior. It humbles you. It quiets your ego. It softens your heart. And you know it's real not because it excites you, but because it grounds you. You feel more alive, more present, more human. True spiritual guidance makes you more capable of loving others. It makes you more committed to truth, to justice, to compassion. It does not isolate you, it integrates you. It does not inflate you, it purifies you. So now that you know what to look for, ask yourself this: am I willing to let go of all spiritual experiences that make me feel powerful, in order to embrace the ones that make me feel real? Can I surrender the drama of spiritual highs for the depth of spiritual clarity? Will I trust that the divine is not something I need to chase, but something I need to become? These are the questions that shape the rest of your path. The answers will not always come quickly, but they will come. And when they do, you will feel it not as a rush, but as a quiet knowing. A peace that needs no explanation. A truth that needs no defense. You have walked through the illusion. You have faced the false light. You have chosen what is harder, but what is real. And now you walk differently. You speak differently. You pray differently. You are no longer just a seeker, you are a keeper of truth. You no longer need to be guided, you are being guided from within. And no demon, no false spirit, no clever deception can ever take that from you again. Because you have seen the truth, and the truth has set you free.